CZ. You didn't know I had a CZ? Well, I don't. It's a friend of mine's. This is the special Aussie edition. Got the Aussie flag there on the grips. CZ SP01 Shadow, Australian edition. Safety check. All empty. CZ, as you probably all well know, is a double action, single action pistol. And these are pretty much the most common and most seen production firearm for IPSC in Australia. Recently, there's been a big influx of people converting from CZ to Tanfolio, which is, of course, a clone or a version of the CZ firearm with the double action, single action trigger system, with the very, very, very shallow slide and the full length rails within the slide there. This one here is a good friend of mine's. Very, very, very nice gun to hold. It just fits amazing within the hand. Personally, I think some grippier grips, maybe some nice G-tone grips or something like that, would change the feel. I'm a little bit sweaty as I speak, and it's fairly slippy. You know, I can slip off it quite easily. This one does have some additional grip tape on the front there, which does make a bit of a difference with that small texturing on the back there. SP01 Shadow is pretty much the competition tuned special version of the original CZ75. Now the Shadow, as you more than likely well know, does not have the B model firing pin safety up in the slide. When we pop the slide back, you can see that there is no plunger up here for the firing pin safety. Okay, so it's completely only reliant on the external safety and, of course, your trigger finger being your biggest safety. So this one does not have the hammer drop safety, which is a requirement in America for a lot of production-based carry firearms. That, as a result, gives these a good trigger. Now, this one has got the lighter CZ check sport springs, so the double action trigger is lighter and the single action trigger is also lighter than factory. When I say light, what do I mean? Well, for the double action, as you should well know, double action, pull the trigger and the hammer comes back. And eventually it drops. Bang. That's double action. When the slide reciprocates, comes back, it will lock the hammer back. And did you see the trigger move? Now you've got single action. Hammer's already back. You have considerable take-up. A lot of movement in take-up there. But it's light. Then it stops, and then you got a very light break. That single action is probably right down in the range of about 2 pounds. Very, very, very light. But it does have considerable movement on that single action. So if you're not used to it, it can sometimes catch you out a little bit. All that movement there is fairly light. And so you go, I fired it accidentally. Fairly light. But when you think about it, when it fires, bang, and then the slide comes back, locks the hammer back, you've only got a fairly short reset. Watch my finger. That's the reset. I didn't have to move it all the way out here. It only went to there, fire. Watch the reset again. Watch my little finger movement. Click and fire. So the single action is absolutely beautiful, and that is why the CZ Shadow particularly has become extremely popular worldwide for IPSC, because that single action trigger is just very, very quick and allows you to be extremely accurate. The negative of the double action, single action is in IPSC, your first shot always has to be taken in double action with the hammer forward. So your first shot always has to be with that long trigger pull. Now if you're trying to do that quickly, buzzer goes off, beep, present the gun, fire. It's very, very likely, if you can watch my sights, very, very likely that when you pull the trigger, you'll jerk the front of the gun. So when you move the front of the gun in that double action, your first shot will quite often jerk to the left and pull off to the left. Now that obviously comes down to practice and you get used to it, but that's where your Glocks and your single action Smith & Wesson M&Ps, well, safe action, or your single action 1911s come into play, because every shot is exactly the same. You don't have a double action, single action trigger system. SP01 Shadow is all aluminium. It's an all metal. It's an aluminium frame, stainless steel slide. Shadow has the accessory rail on the front. Don't kid yourself when you're thinking that's really for putting lights on. That is there to put weight at the front of the gun to reduce recoil. Okay? That's basically just a very, very heavy front end to increase forward weight, so when you're firing, you get less of this to speed the gun up. Now, that's what I said before about it being a highly tuned production gun for IPSC. In reality, it's not really something that gets carried in the real world where the production production class originated. You can get the CZ75 Phantom, which looks identical, but it's a polymer frame, so obviously you don't have that weight advantage. That's where you'd probably more than likely use your accessory rail. This one has got different rear sights, and I believe the front sight is original. It does have different rear sights to factory. Now, they're obviously adjustable, left and right, up and down. Not too sure on the make of these, to be honest. I would have to check with the owner. They have had the dots blanked out with some black electrical tape, in that it would have been a 3-dot configuration. Now, the original sights that came on the gun, both this one and a couple of others firearms that I know of well, had issues from brand new. Only in this Aussie model, as far as I'm aware, they all shot around about point of impact was about 6 inches higher than the furthest adjustment of the sight, at around about 25 meters. At 5, 10, 15 meters, it wasn't really an issue. At 25 meters, it became very, very apparent you had to aim at 6 o'clock, right down at 6 o'clock, which is no problem if you're used to that. But myself and predominantly a lot of the guys that I shoot with shoot at aim at point of impact, purely for IPSC. So the owner of this one changed this rear sight, which gave some more elevation adjustment. As you can see, there's a fair bit of adjustment on this one to bring this to point of impact for point of aim. The SP01 does have the dual-sided, both sides ambidextrous safety. It's very, very light safety, very, very positive. So not very positive, I mean. Big movement, but light. Very, very easy to flick off at the start of a stage, but probably not something you'd really rely on if you're running single action and are going to carry this gun, for example. But that's because it's a competition firearm. The CZs, as you more than likely would know, do have the full length rail. All the way down the firearm is the rail that the slide runs in. Now, the slide does run inside it on the CZ. Slide is down inside the rail. You can just see it on this side here. Whereas most firearms, the other way around, you'd see the rail cut here and the slide sits over that. That is how the CZ slide is so shallow. So you can see the rail here, it's built into the slide and it sits inside here. So the slide is actually that size, which makes it look smaller, and it is smaller. The negative of it being smaller is there's not much purchase here when you come to grab it to rack it. Now, a lot of guys like to present at the front, or at least do a chamber check at the front. There's not much meat there. Fortunately, these serrations are nice and grabby, nice and sharp. So if you get on the right spot, you can get it no problem, front or rear. It is a very, very nice firearm, very, very, very quick and extremely accurate. It is definitely not an arguing point as to whether they're accurate or not. These can certainly make an average shooter look very, very, very good. That is for sure. Trigger-wise, yes, double action, single action can make life a little bit awkward. You really got to learn it. Your first shot sometimes can be completely throwaway, and you essentially have to take your first shot twice once you get it into single action mode. I absolutely love the feel of the CZ. The grip is just perfect. That curvature there just grabs your little finger. That little bump there just fills your palm. To me, it's pretty much the perfect grip. You can't really get much better. I am a huge fan of the CZ75B. I'm yet to own one. I'm hanging out to try and get a 75 Shadow, which is exactly the same internally as this CZ75 SP01 Shadow, but without the rail. So it will have the traditional scalloping here with the Shadow internals. It will be the CZ75 Shadow. Unfortunately, that's an American CZ America product by Angus Hobdell, whatever his name is. So that would not be a valid firearm to use in IPSC production, but it doesn't really worry me too much. Okay, guys, that is my what I'll call tabletop review of CZ75 SP01 Shadow Australia Edition.